From little bits of lore to obscure game knowledge, here is a random fact about every brawler in Brawl Stars. And if you have some random fun fact of your own, be sure to leave it in the comments. Starting off with Shelly. Now, a lot of people think that she's from Mexico, and you can't really blame anyone for thinking that. She's Latina, and you can hear her speaking Spanish in some of her voice lines, but it was confirmed in a comment from the Brawl Stars official Facebook account, as seen in this screenshot right here, that she is in fact Argentinian. Shout out Argentina. In the no time to explain animation, you can see right here that Colt has a star on his back. However, this animation is from Brawl Stars' early era, specifically when the game was launched globally, and Colt has gotten a few remodels since this animation came out. Now, Colt still does have a star power on his back, but now, instead of being a standard 5-point star like it used to be, it's a star icon that is in Bounty that we're all familiar with. As a bonus fun fact, Colt's two rare skins, Rockstar and Outlaw Colt, have a crown and a lightning bolt, respectively. Pretty neat. Every brawler in the game has an idle animation, from the humans to the robots. However, there is actually one brawler who, for some reason, does not have one, and it's Spike. Whereas you can see everyone else moving a little bit, Spike stands completely still. He's just standing there menacingly. Most of you know now that Ems has a picture of Poco on her phone screen. But did you know that before she was released, she was teased in the first ever Brawloween animation way back in 2019? It's very easy to miss, but if you look closely in the background while Frank is feeding these ghost ducks, you can spot her hiding behind this tree. And speaking of hiding, did you know that there was a point in time where Mortis could hide in walls? These two profile icons, well, yeah, they're more than just for laughs. They're a throwback to this glitch where if Mortis was near a wall and aims his dash perfectly, he can hide inside of a wall and avoid all damage, almost like Shade with his super. It was pretty broken in Showdown. If you weren't playing as a wall breaker, that is. Did you know that Frank was possibly the worst brawler of all time for an excruciating long period? This was because back then, his main attack had the same unload speed that it does now when he's at full health, but it was for all of his shots. It was only during the Hypercharge era where Frank finally went from getting hammered to hammering everything in his path thanks to his rework, which made it so that he unloads his attacks faster when at lower health. During Comic-Con 2025, there was a Q&A from some of the Brawl Stars developers, including Drew, who is now a former community manager, as well as Fernanda, the game's current character designer. In this Q&A, Jesse's father was confirmed to be described as a tough guy being bullish in character. I wonder who fits that description the best. Crow's Hyper Buffy is actually a reused temporary power-up that he got from the Godzilla and Katana Kingdom events. During those two events, his mutation and his wasabi power made it so that his daggers would return to him upon reaching max distance, like Carl's pickaxe. Only now with his Hyper Buffy, Crow's daggers deal 20% less damage upon returning to him, so it's almost exactly like his previous power-ups, but just slightly weaker. Oh, also, one more bonus fun fact for Crow, since he's my favorite brawler. Did you know back when Crow first was released, his super was way different? I mean, he still jumped and kind of landed on somebody, but he hung out in the air for a long time, which made it rather obvious where he was about to land, and it wasn't that effective. But it was still pretty cool. Back before Brawl Stars had the 7 classes that we're all used to today, it actually had a lot more, with some being exclusive for certain brawlers. As for BB, when she first came out, she was the first and only brawler which was called a batter class. However, in October of 2021, she was changed to being a damage dealer, and at the end of February 2023, she was then changed to a tank, which is still her class as of today. We all know that when Leon uses his super, he becomes invisible, and he can only be seen when either he uses his main attack or he gets too close to an enemy. But when he was first released, Leon's invisibility made it so that he could not be seen even if he was right on top of you. This made Leon the best brawler in the game upon release, and it was only when he got his Hypercharge that he got the chance to revisit those glory days, as now it makes him invisible no matter what. Taking damage? Still invisible. Attacking? Yep, invisible. Staring you directly in your eye sockets? Yeah, he's still invisible. Nita has a lot of cool skins, but one of her coolest is her 79 gem skin, Gummy Bear Nita. What makes this such a cool skin, despite its low price, is that before Hypercharge skins, this was the only skin aside from Mask Spike that actually changed the Brawler's appearance mid-battle. Mask Spike changes, well, his mask, but Gummy Bear Nita changes her colors from green to pink and yellow. And I think it'd be pretty cool if Brawl Stars goes back and adds even more colors like a cherry red, blueberry blue, grape purple, you know, some other cool ones. Now, we all know Bo as an epic brawler, but back in Brawl Stars beta days, well, he was still just an epic brawler, but later he was changed to a super rare. And then a little over a year after that, he got changed to a common brawler. For those of you who don't know, common was a rarity that for the brawlers that were on the trophy road back before they started using the Star Road rarity and all the other stuff. So after being an epic, a super rare, then a common, finally in 2022, Bo was changed back to being an epic rarity like he always used to be. Edgar recently got a rework to his Let's Fly gadget. No longer does it make his super auto charge faster, but now summons a scarf that makes him jump towards the closest enemy or wall that it hits. What you might not realize is this ability is actually a slightly reworked version of one of the temporary abilities from the Subway Surfers event. In that event, there were these power-ups called Subway Supers, one of them being the Pogo Pull. It worked almost identically to how Edgar's gadget now works, so it's kind of cool to see them go back into this event and take a bit of inspiration from it and apply it to Edgar. Colette's Brawl Talk is the only Brawl Talk that can no longer be viewed on the official Brawl Stars YouTube channel. This is because of the licensing rights to the Star Park investor video, which was a video that was produced by an external company. This video was shown during the Brawl Talk, and eventually that licensing expired and Brawl Stars no longer was allowed to keep it up for people to watch. Griff is well known as the greedy gift shop owner, but it's actually much worse than you thought. When he attacks, he throws coins, and you might think that he's using money from the cash register that sits on his head, but if you look closely at the jar that he carries around, you'll see that it says tips. Yeah, all that money that's thrown around while he's brawling isn't even his. He's actually using Edgar and Colette's tip money. So he's stealing from his employees and throwing their money at other people. Despicable. During the Katana Kingdom event, there was a glitch in Knockout 5v5 that made it basically impossible for Poco to die. The way that this worked is that all of Poco's allies had to die so that he could get the stat buffs that would increase his damage and, more importantly, his max hit points and healing. This glitch was especially broken if Poco was facing off against enemies with a lot of projectiles. El Primo's El Grillo skin is a reference to El Chapulín, Colorado, and also to all you South American people. I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering this horribly. El Chapulín, Colorado was a 1970s Latin American icon from a telenovela of the same name. It was a smash hit with families alongside its sister show, El Chavo del Ocho. Now, both El Chavo and El Chapulín were played by the beloved actor and comedian Chespirito. El Chapulín even got his own animated show in 2025, and he would often be mentioned in El Chavo Animado. Amber's Frost Queen skin used to be an epic skin, but it was changed to be a legendary skin in 2024, even obtaining a pin set, a spray, a profile icon, and a takedown effect, and even voice lines. And as far as I know, this is the only skin to have ever gotten this treatment, which is pretty dang cool. 8-Bit is iconic in his own right, and he was the main character of one of Brawl Stars' most popular animated videos of all time called The Last Stand. Okay, so actually Pam got more screen time than him, but it was his video. But did you know that this video was actually made to promote a brand new weekend game of the same name? In this game mode, you and 2 others work together to protect 8-Bit from an army of robots. It was basically like Robo Rumble, but instead of a heist safe, it was 8-Bit that you had to protect. But it wasn't good. And it was only in the game for like 2 months before it was removed permanently. Jesse's Red Dragon skin was given to players for free to celebrate Brawl Stars becoming available to play in China. It is the only skin with its own skin set called the Red. This is because the color red is said to be China's lucky color, and the dragon is associated with power. That explains why you often see movies that take place in China using heavy imagery of dragons, like Kung Fu Panda as an example. Pam's Hypercharge was accidentally released released into the game early due to a bug. And her Hypercharge icon was originally the icon that was used for Lola's Hypercharge. The reason for this is because it was before the Katana Kingdom event started, and Pam's wasabi power worked exactly like her Hypercharge does. Brawl Stars then quickly removed Pam's Hypercharge and refunded anybody who bought it, and then they would later go on to officially release it. Despite being in the game for over a half a decade, Nani has only appeared in 2 official Brawl Stars animations, those being the Legends of Olympus and the Scary Tales. But if you want to get technical, we can also count the Brawl Stars and Line Friends animations, since Sally Nani is a Nani skin, but Sally is her own character, so does that really count? If you pay attention to Brock's profile, you might notice something that's off, and that's his jacket. In his icon, it's purple, but in his in-game model, it's blue. So what gives? Well, in an attempt to make Brock look up to date, Brawl Stars gave him a remodel, and let's just say that the reception was less than positive. From his bright pink jacket to his, let's just be real, ridiculous haircut, there was a lot of backlash from the community. Ricochet is what Rico's name used to be, and this skin is homage to Rico's original design in Brawl Stars Beta. It was given out to players for free during the Brawl Stars first Brawler Days anniversary since going global, meaning that less than half of the current player base actually owns this skin. Dynamite's Fidget Spinner gadget is named after a toy that exploded in popularity around 2017-ish. This gadget was also a joke ability that was added mainly to poke fun at teaming Dynamites in Solo Showdown. Back then, it made Dynamite stand in place while spinning, leaving him completely vulnerable and incapable of dodging incoming attacks. Carl's Dark-Tide skin used to be brown in color instead of the blue that he wears today. Some of the other changes in the skin include his golden tooth going from the left side of his mouth to the right. His eye patch also went from purple metal to this gold. His goatee became a little less pointy and more rounded, and finally, his ship becoming a lighter shade of brown. Jackie swears a lot, and that's why her voice lines are censored, or at least that's what we all think. There is, however, a video where we get to hear all of Jackie's voice lines completely uncensored, and depending who you are, you'll either get a good laugh at it or you'll be very disappointed.
Fudge this!
This next one may be a bit of a stretch, but go with me here. Piper's mecha skins could have some cool references. The Petal skin could be easily a reference to Princess Peach in Super Mario, and her Mecha Rose skin is most likely a reference to Asuka from Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now, the latter of those two is especially cool because Brawl Stars in fact did have a collab with Evangelion. At least the Chinese version of the game did. The bottle that Barley is holding in his Sway Master skin is called a Chinese-style Hulu. It's shaped like the fruit that it's named after, and these kind of bottles are often used for drinking water or sake. And knowing Barley, it's probably sake. Byron is a very good brawler competitively. Not only does he have good healing, but he also has good damage. But despite that good damage, he's actually never won a single 1v1 in any of my Brawler 1v1 interaction videos. He did get very close against Naja, but he still lost. Most of you don't know this, but there was a point in Brawl Stars where boxes were removed from the game. Brawl Stars did this as an attempt to remove RNG from the game completely, and boy oh boy did that not age well. To celebrate the removal of the old box system, Brawl Stars gave players a free Omega box. This box was one of a kind and given to every player at the time. Additionally, everyone had to work together to reach 4 billion takedowns to obtain this Daryl skin, which was based on the Omega box. Now, Daryl also has this Mega Box skin, which was given to players for free to celebrate Brawl Stars' first anniversary in China. Now we just gotta wait for Brawl Stars to give Daryl an Ultra Box skin. Explosion Tick has 2 different colored arms, a white one and a black one. If you look at the sides, you can see his white arm has an S and his black arm has a P. That's because they contain salt and pepper. Penny used to look and play a lot different than she does now. Here's a side-by-side comparison of her design before and now. As for her rework, she received entire changes to her star power and her gadgets. Suffice to say, Penny has gotten quite the overhaul since she was released. Tara was the first brawler to get her own environment upon the Brawl Pass being added to the game. That first Brawl Pass was even named after her being called Tara's Bazaar. But despite all of that, she didn't even get a skin during that first Brawl Pass season. It's kind of sad. Jean's Spirit Slap star power used to be so much worse than it is now. When it was first added, it was called Pat on the Back. This would make it so that his super would heal his teammates if he hit him with his super. It was then renamed to Spirit Slap like it is now, but it was changed so that his main attack would deal an extra 300 damage when having his super fully charged. Finally, in 2022, Spirit Slap would be reworked to make Gene's super deal damage to whoever he grabs, and it's stayed that way ever since. Sandy is based on the Sandman, who, according to Wikipedia, is a mythical character originating from a Germanic and Scandinavian folklore. He throws, well, sand into the eyes of children so that they can have sweet dreams. However, in Sandy's case, he doesn't actually throw sand. Instead, he throws pebbles at his enemies, sharp pebbles to be exact. When Rosa was first released, she was able to constantly cycle her supers against enemy Rosas. Her shield was stronger, it lasted longer, and she was able to charge it much quicker. Watching two Rosas fight each other back in 2019 was like watching two anime characters clashing fists with every punch. It was kinda nuts. Bee's Honeycomb Star Power used to be one of the best the game has ever seen. The way it worked is that whenever she took damage that would normally kill her, she would get a shield and stay at 1 hit points, which basically acted as a second life for her. It was completely busted and was later changed and then removed. Sprout used to be one of the biggest troll brawlers in the game, as back when it was first released, its walls were able to constantly trap enemies inside their own goal in Brawl Ball. All it had to do was keep charging its super and aim right in front of the goal. Doing this made it so that the enemy team could do nothing to escape, as they would be easy targets for Sprout to attack and kill. Thankfully, it was changed so that anybody with invincibility bubble could destroy those walls upon contact. When Janet and Bonnie were added into the game, not only did Stu get 2 new members to his trio, but those 2 new members would become his daughters. This is because he adopted them when they arrived to Star Park, becoming a father figure for them like Bo is for Leon and Nita. If you time Janet's Hypercharge super perfectly, you can use her super as if she's still in her Hypercharge state. This is great for getting your super back much easier and recharging your Hypercharge a bit. It's better to use her main attack with her Hypercharge since it actually benefits from the damage boost. When Bonnie got her supercharge gear, she became arguably the most broken brawler in the game's history, and I don't mean in the usual meta way. If Bonnie used her super with this gear equipped, she would constantly take damage and self-heal while in her body form, and this would crash the game every time it happened. During the Godzilla event, there was a bug in Godzilla City Smash. If Otis activated his gadget Fat Splatter before grabbing the Godzilla power-up, he would be able to always attack as if the gadget was active. This made Otis one of the best brawlers for this limited time game mode. If you saw him on the enemy team, you kind of just knew you were screwed. Hank's Jam Master skin is a reference to the 2020 hit rhythm game Friday Night Funkin'. Brawl Stars even tweeted an art post very reminiscent of its gameplay, with the arrows at the top of the screen and the dual HP bar at the bottom. There's even this legendary Brawl Stars and Friday Night Funkin' fan project on YouTube by Waku, so go check it out if you want. It's pretty awesome. There is a very interesting reason behind Clancy's name. Now, of course, Clancy is a crab, and who is one of, if not the most famous crabs in the world? It's the cheapskate Mr. Krabs, of course. The voice actor for Mr. Krabs is a fella named Clancy Brown. So Brawl Stars named the crab in-game after the most famous Krabs voice actor. Brawl Stars can be a very unbalanced game. Let's just be real. There have been, and there always will be, broken brawlers like Kenji or Larry and Lori just wreaking havoc upon the meta when they get released. Or in some rarer, more recent cases, you'll have brawlers like Ziggy or Gigi who, upon release, were sadly just not very good at all. But among every brawler throughout the game, there's only one that has never gotten a single nerf. And that brawler is none other than Buzz. Okay. So his Hypercharge stat boost did get nerfed back in October, but everybody's got nerfed. So if everybody gets nerfed, does anybody get nerfed? Every brawler has their own text flavor in their profile, a description that kind of tells you a bit about their lore or personality. But did you know that among 104 brawlers in the game, Doug has the shortest, and it's never been updated since his release. Buzz joined the roster in the summer of 2021, and Doug was added to the game in the summer of 2023. So naturally, people expected Pierce to be released in the summer of 2025 to keep up the consistency of this trio's release period. And Pierce did come out in 2025. However, instead of coming in the game in summer of that year, he instead came out during December, which is the time that's usually reserved for Brawladays. And instead of a Christmas event, we got an entire event dedicated to peeing in the pool. Yuck. Sam got arguably the quickest emergency nerf ever. Before he got his Hypercharge, Sam was an F tier brawler. Upon getting his Hypercharge, he became S tier, maybe even the top of the S tier. About 3 days after he got his Hypercharge, its charge rate quickly got nerfed, making Sam go all the way back down to the F tier. And meanwhile, of course, they can just have Kenji with a busted Hypercharge for like a month straight. No bias, right? And while we're talking about bad hypercharges, Pearl's is definitely one of, if not the worst of all time. This hypercharge knocks enemies away from the burning circle that Pearl creates when using her hyper super. The thing that you're supposed to want the enemies to get inside. Belle is the only brawler in the game to have a map named after her. That map, of course, is Belle's Rock. Additionally, this map has never once been removed from the game, as it's always been one of the few maps that has been in rotation. Kind of like Sneaky Fields, am I right? This drawing on Ash's back is not just some random doodle. It's actually the signature of Brawl Stars' previous character designer, Paul Chambers. Ash was the last brawler that he worked on designing before Fernanda took over. In fact, at the end of the In Brawl You Can animation, you can actually see a small selection of some of the most iconic brawlers that were designed by Paul himself. Except for Shelly, who was for some reason replaced by Kenji, who was designed by Fernanda. Again, anything to glaze Kenji. Grom has the most dodgeable attack in the game, and this, along with his most recent nerf, makes him bottom of the barrel F tier brawler. But when he first came out, Grom was actually S tier, like borderline OP, and this was because his damage output basically had no delay. Depending on how far he threw his bombs, they would either stay in the air for as long as they do now, or they would be immediately dropped at his feet if you aimed close to him. So unlike now, Grom used to actually be able to defend himself sometimes, and even win in close range matches. Brawl Stars has a lot of wall breakers, but can you guess who the last wall breaker that was added to the game is? Well, it's actually Mo. Now some of you might be confused. Mo? A wall breaker? Well, Mo has a gadget called Rat Race, and this gadget can only be used while he is in his drill form. Upon activation, this gadget allows Mo to dash, knock back enemies, and of course, destroy walls. Not that anybody uses this gadget, but it's there. It's taken Brawl Stars almost 2 years to release another brawler with a wall break, and that is one that is upcoming, which would be Bolt with one of his gadgets. Max's mastery title used to reference Lightning McQueen's first line in the original Cars movie. Her Lightning Bolt icon is also most likely a reference to the lightning bolts on Lightning's sides, and her color palette could be based on Lightning's red primary and yellow secondary colors. So you all know how Surge's Hypercharge works. When his main attack reaches max distance, it splits automatically. Well, back when Surge was first released, that's how his star power to the max actually worked. And let me tell you, Surge with this star power back then was an absolute nightmare. Arguably one of the best brawlers on release of all time. A lot of people believe that Meg is a child, and that's fair. She has one of, if not the highest pitched voices in the game, and definitely one of the most hated. However, it has been confirmed by Paul that she is actually in her 20s, which is a lot older than I thought. Ghost Squeak is most likely a reference to King Boo. From the black eyes, purple pupils, pointy teeth, and purple tongue, it's quite hard not to see the resemblance. Baiku Eve is a pretty darn neat skin. She does this cool sliding animation, and at first, you really wouldn't think much of it. But what you might not realize is this skin is a nod to the iconic slide from the 1988 anime Akira. This slide is so iconic that there is a whole compilation on YouTube of other shows and movies referencing this very slide. So we all know Ruff's mastery title is Colonel, right? Well, when he was first released, Colonel was actually part of his name, making him Colonel Ruffs. But on the 31st of August, 2022, it was removed, making him just, well, Ruffs. Willow's main attack works similarly to a thrower like Barley, but despite this, she is not in the artillery class. Instead, she's in the controller class, and this is obviously because she has a mind-controlling ability. She was, however, temporarily labeled as a thrower during the Random BS event, along with Ziggy, who is another controller, and Barry, who is a support. I even made a video with all the throwers to see which one's the best. Be sure to check that one out if you haven't. Brawl Stars has a ton of different characters in the game, from humans, robots, dogs, dog drool. But did you know that Angelo is the only brawler in the game that is an insect? He's a mosquito, and mosquitoes are annoying, and they can give you malaria. Not cool, Angelo. Allie is a relatively new brawler that has come into Brawl Stars, and did you know that she is an alligator? You probably did. So here's a fun alligator fact. Did you know alligators throughout their lifetime will go through 2,000 to 3,000 teeth? Whenever one breaks off, a new one grows back in its place, and they are endless supply of teeth. 2,000 to 3,000 of them. It's crazy. Chuck's Electroid skin from the Super Brawl update is heavily based on Sparky from Clash Royale. This skin is also created by Getty Core, who also created other Supercell make skins like Horace Bow, Nightmare Sandy, and King Frank, which is also based in Clash Royale. Shade is named after the fact that it wears, well, a pair of shades, but there's actually a little bit more to it than that. A shade is a spirit or a ghost of a dead person that resides in the underworld, which kind of makes you wonder why Shade didn't get a skin during the Legends of the Underworld season. Seems like it would fit. Shade and Chuck both have abilities that allow them to pass through walls. Shade has a super, and Chuck has his gadget, which makes sense because they are members of the Ghost Station trio after all. But Gus is the only brawler in that trio that has no means of walking through walls at all. And similar to Gus, Trunk is the only member of the Enchanted Woods trio who doesn't have any means of entering the Shadow Realm on command, like Cordelius or Lily. And speaking of Lily, she is the second brawler in the game who does not have any voice lines. And no, Gray doesn't count because he does make a few noises when he attacks, like pew pew pew. He's got little finger guns and they make noise. Now we do get to hear what Lily could have sounded like when she was a human from her official release animation, but that's as close as we'll ever get to hearing her actual voice. Cordelius was the brawler to introduce the Shadow Realm mechanic that is unique to his trio. But do you know where that name comes from? It comes from the 4Kids dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! It was used to censor things like death, so if a character died, instead of dying, they would be sent to, you guessed it, the Shadow Realm. There was once a bug in Big Game that made it so that Mr. P's porters, upon activating his porter reinforcements gadget, had a ton of hit points, like almost 100,000 hit points, making him one of the best choices to play as the big boss before the bug was patched. Gale was the first ever brawler introduced onto the Brawl Pass, which featured his Brawl Pass skin, Merchant Gale. However, when the Brawl Pass was introduced, it was very underwhelming and it just wasn't worth the 169 gems that it cost to buy it, so many players just didn't. But if you're one of those people who did buy the first ever Brawl Pass, congratulations! You are one of the few people in the entire community who can flex that original Merchant Gale skin. Lou is one of the few brawlers whose core gimmick hasn't been recycled from another brawler since his release. There are a lot of abilities that used to be unique for one brawler until Supercell later added those abilities on another brawler. However, Lou's freeze is still entirely unique to him, at least a complete freeze. Lumi tried to get that one too, but she missed out on the freeze. In part 1 of Fang's introduction animation, he performs this flurry of kicks, which ends with him doing a little shockwave attack, very similar from the shockwave from Frank and Nita's main attacks. However, in-game, he is never seen performing this attack, and he only attacks with kicks when he's close range or shoes when he's far away. Buster was the only brawler whose Brawl Pass could be bought for 50% off. Let me explain. See, there was a Brawler rarity that used to exist in the game called Chromatic, and brawlers in that rarity could be unlocked earlier upon spending gems during their respective Brawl Pass season. Before the Star Road was added to the game, along with credits and chroma credits, anyone who bought Buster's Brawl Pass would receive half of their gems back, making it the most valuable or least expensive Brawl Pass in the game's history. Maisie's name is a pun on the Spanish word for corn called maize. Her hair in her default skin is popcorn colored, and her yellow hair in her 29 gem skin, Tech Maisie, is colored after buttery popcorn. She even has a little popcorn pin on her default shirt and a smiley piece of popcorn on her tech shirt. Pretty cute. Lola was initially a member of Fang's trio, or at least that's what we all used to believe. In the Year of the Tiger Part 2 animation, there is an arcade game with a Brawler select screen, very similar to the popular arcade game fighting series, The King of Fighters. And as you can see right here, every existing brawler at the time was split into teams of 3, with Lola's icon being the same trio as Fang's. However, when Buster was introduced, it was later confirmed that she isn't in the same trio with him, but rather she is just friends with them. Wukong Miko is based on one of the main characters from the 16th century Chinese novel, A Journey to the West. His name is Sun Wukong, aka the the Monkey King. In the past, we've had some Brawler challenges where if you beat them, you can unlock the Brawler early for free. Back when Gray was first released, there was a quest where players had to deal 500,000 damage with Gray. No other Brawler has been released with a quest like this ever since. Chester is the only Brawler in the game who has 5 different supers, whereas every other Brawler in the game has 1, except for a select few like Bonnie, Kaze, Jae Young, etc., who have 2 supers. Oh, and also, there's Buzz Lightyear, who had 3. Sorry, didn't mean to trigger your PTSD. He's gone. He's gone now. You're safe. Barry has this walking animation where he leans forward and swings his arms back and forth. Nothing too crazy, but it's actually not the first time Brawl Stars used this exact walking animation. Back when Barry was a work in progress, you can see a bot Barley doing this same run in gameplay footage from the Star Toons Brawl Talk. It's honestly very cursed. During the Scary Tale season of Ranked, there was a bug that made it impossible to get the skin of the season through ranked drops, Malicious Mandy. Obviously, players were furious. I just thought I had bad luck. Brawl Stars decided to make up for this mistake by making it so that everyone who reached Legendary during that ranked season would automatically be able to get the skin from the shop. When Draco was first released, he not only got his own music video, he got this cool player icon that was only obtainable from his early access offer, but he also got his own custom Gibson Flying V guitar that could be won in a giveaway. All of this was to celebrate Draco's release as well as Brawl Stars collab with Dragon Force, and we have never had another Brawler release like this until recently we got Damien, who we'll talk about in a bit. Brawl Stars has a lot of different characters representing many different real-life countries. Poco, Primo, and Amber all represent Mexico. Melody and Jae Young are from Korea. Mina and Ollie, Brazil, and so on. Now, some of you might not know this, but Supercell was originally founded in Helsinki, Finland. However, it wouldn't be until 2025 where the game would receive its first Finnish brawler in Lumi. In Damien's music video, it shows that he becomes hypersensitive to noise, resulting in him becoming physically aggressive and entering a sort of berserker rage mode. This is most likely to Damien having misophonia, which is a disorder that activates a fight or flight response with him hearing certain noises. And as we can see when he's in Kenji's sushi shop and he hears Kenji using his cooking knife. So in order to avoid this, Draco and Lumi give him a pair of noise-canceling headphones, and they allow Damien to do things that he otherwise couldn't, like playing video games. Charlie was the final brawler who was originally released in the Chromatic Rarity before it was removed, and every brawler's Chromatic Brawler Rarity was either changed to Epic, Mythic, or Legendary. Sirius is a mysterious character, and hopefully Brawl Stars goes back to answering some lingering question that players have about him. But there is one question that I do have the answer to. Does Sirius only have one arm? Well, the answer is actually no. If you look at Sirius's catalog, you can see that he actually has his right hand in his clapping pin. Now, you might think that this is just the clapping pin animation being lazy and copy-pasted over, but I think it's an intentional detail, as Maisie, who is missing her arm, uses a wrench in her clapping pin animation. If they were really lazy, they could have just copy-pasted the clapping animation on Maisie's clapping pin and called it a day. But no, they actually care about the little details. Kenji is one of the most popular brawlers ever, and part of that is thanks to him having one of the best introduction videos ever. It is phenomenally animated, the music is hype, and the voice acting on display is also crazy good. And in case you didn't know, Kenji in this animation is voiced by Yuki Kaji, who is the voice of Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan, as well as Shoto Todoroki from My Hero Academia. Oh, and also, Supercell, if you ever collab with My Hero again, can you please give us this Lumi skin? Just like Kenji, Kaze is voiced by a Japanese voice actress in her animation. That voice actress is named Ai Faruz. Some of you might know her as the voice of Jolin from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6, Stone Ocean, as well as Sissa from Zenless Zone Zero. Melody was originally going to use her microphone as a throwable and retractable projectile, as seen in those official concept art. This obviously didn't happen, as this idea would later go on to be used for Lumi, as Melody's kit would end up revolve around her and her notes. Jae Young is the only brawler to have unique battle music that plays over the environment music. Depending on which mode he's in, it'll either be upbeat and fast or calm and healing. RT used to have the worst gadget of all time, and that's saying a lot because there's been some really bad ones. His out-of-line gadget used to be called Inline, and what this gadget did was just summon a mark that would go in a straight line from his body to his legs, and it dealt a measly 500 damage to anybody that got hit by it. And that big word is there is if, because nobody ever did. and also nobody ever used it, but it lasted for a while, but it sucked. Prime Larry and Lori are often argued to be the strongest brawler of all time. And as someone who's been making content on this game for almost an entire decade, yeah, I can see why people said that. This brawler was so good on release, you could play him with randoms all the way up to 1,250 trophies back when rank 35 was a thing. A really hard thing to achieve, but you could do it with randoms, because Larry and Lori were just that broken upon release. At the time of writing this, Juju is the only female in the thrower class. Remember, Willow is a controller, but she's also the only brawler in the game aside from Allie, whose main attack is affected by the tile that she's standing on. Almost 5 years ago, someone posted a concept for a potential Edgar rework, with one of these reworks being a new evasion trait, a trait that would allow him to charge his super when dodging projectiles. Even Danny responded to this, saying that the team had actually discussed potentially adding this trait, just not on Edgar at that time. Fast forward to 2025, and this trait would finally be added into the game, but instead of it being given to Edgar, it was given to Gigi, who, at the time of recording this, is the first and only brawler to have this trait. Finks is the only brawler aside from Sandy whose super became its own temporary game mode modifier. Throughout the match, there would be short periods of time where all projectiles would be slowed down, exactly as if they were inside Finks' super. Naj's animation was written by Takia, oh man, I can't pronounce that, this name. They're a New Zealand filmmaker who has worked on such films like The Legend of Aang, The Last Airbender, as well as Avengers Endgame, which, if you saw that in theaters, you might remember the No Time to Explain animation was shown before the movie started playing. In Ollie's animation, if you pause when all these cassette tapes appear, you can see that some of them are named after some real-life musical artists. Beastie Bees is, of course, for the Beastie Boys, MF Doug after MF Doom, Dr. Draco after Dr. Dre, and most obviously, M&M's after Eminem. Mina's mythic skins are an homage to the popular arcade rhythm game Dance Dance Revolution. You can see it in her winning animation when she times her movements to the notes that appear. In her losing animation, that bar thing she sits next to is called the stabilization bar, which is what players use to keep their balance while playing. Kit was first mentioned in the Star Patrol Brawl Talk in 2021, and for a long time after it premiered, the community was eagerly waiting for him to come into the game, with some players speculating that this black cat from Shelly's Witch's skin was in fact Kit himself. Fast forward to the December 2023 Brawl Talk, and Kit was finally revealed along with his own environment, the Startoon Studio. Star Nova is a living reference to the 90s anime icon Sailor Moon, from her design to her animations to actually her voice lines. Speaking of which, one of her voice lines is
Just like episode 67.
And if you take a couple seconds to look up Sailor Moon episode 67, you'll see that it's a beach episode. And in case you didn't know, a lot, and I do mean a lot, of anime tend to have at least one episode that takes place at the beach. Ziggy was revealed during Comic-Con 2025 during a panel that Supercell held. Not only did we get to see what he looked like, but we also got to see that he attacked with lightning. This makes Ziggy one of the least surprising brawlers to ever come into the game, because we knew who he was months before he actually showed up. Meeple's Hypercharge name, The Last Rule Bender, is a obvious reference to the beloved Nickelodeon animated series Avatar, The Last Airbender. And I'm just spitballing here, but maybe we get an Avatar collab. I mean, we got one with SpongeBob. Avatar's not completely off the table. Now, I'm sure that every one of you that is watching this video is aware of this one, but for all the newer players who find this video in the future, Glowy was originally known as Glowbert. However, Brawl Stars removed any and all traces of that being his original name. As for why, it's never been fully explained. There's some rumors out there, and I actually know the real story, but I can't tell you. And finally, we have Bolt. Now, there's really not much about him since he is the newest brawler coming in the game. As of recording this, he's not even in the game yet, but what I can say is that he is the first member of a brand new trio called the Battle Bumpers. And this is now the 40th trio that has ever been added to Brawl Stars. 104 facts for 104 brawlers. If you got some cool ones, leave them in the comments.